Welcome to the Embodiment Podcast. This show is for you if you see the body as more than a brain taxi. It's for people interested in coming home to the body as a holistic aspect of who we are and how we live. Episodes contain practical tips, exercises you can take away, and interviews with specialists from around the world. I'm your host for today, Mark Walsh. So on the show today, Michelle Boule. So Michelle is highly recommended to me. I spoke to her once briefly and enjoyed that chat. She's very likely going to be at the Embodiment Conference. She is a dancer, artist, healer, coach, choreographer, many, many good things. So Michelle, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Where are you in the world today?
Right now I am in Sugar Grove, Illinois.
Sugar Grove, Illinois. I don't know. I've never heard of Sugar Grove, Illinois. So is it a small town?
It's a very small town. Not many people have heard of it. And it's the town where I grew up.
Wow. Okay. So back home after normally New York or somewhere like that, I imagine. So.
Yep. New York until January, normally traveling around the world, but COVID has me planted here at the moment.
Back home, well, maybe we'll come back to that. But let's hear a little bit about your life, Michelle. I was just looking at some wonderful videos of you on your website, dancing and moving. And I just saw an interview of you. You're talking about coaching, so fairly wide-ranging interests to do with the body. How did it all start?
So I started dancing, I thought when I was 5, but my parents recently said they were like, it was 3. No, it was 4. But it started out just that I danced and I took to it. Performing, and that grew and grew and grew. And really what happened, kind of turning points for me, were injuries that I suffered. And one was when I was 16 and I had to quit dancing. So I was at the point where I'd go to school until 3 and then I'd dance from 4 until 9 afterwards. And then on Saturdays all day. And my injuries led me to find a fuller and deeper understanding around what the body is, how it functions, what it's made of, what supports its vitality. And then I almost got obsessive about that, in part because I just wanted to keep dancing. Like there was something that wanted to be expressed through me, and learning about the body and expanding a very limited scope of what the body is. Like I had bad tendonitis in my ankles, and the approach at the time was, okay, let's work on your ankles. But that's, it's too simplistic. It's too reductive.
Yeah.
And that just opened the door in a big way to, for decades now, be exploring these things of interest. How can I let this body serve what I'm here to do?
And you've been doing this for quite a while. And I don't want to be charming, but I was quite surprised when I saw in your bio how long you've been at this. You've got to do all sorts of different modalities and approaches. I mean, we might go into each one, but could you sort of name some of the major ones?
Yeah. So, dance is one, dance and performance that I've been doing since 5 or 3 or 4. Other than that, I'm certified as a BodyTalk practitioner. I've studied source point therapy. I've studied Ewan method, biogeometry. And then just as a dancer, I was exposed to amazing things like studying the Alexander technique for years, Feldenkrais for years, body mind centering for years, looking at continuum movement. And just kind of honestly, like really nerding out.
Well, this is the place to nerd out. This is the Embodiment Geek Show, so no problem, Michelle.
I feel very at home.
Please do. Injuries. I'd say about 50% of people who come on this show, and it's been a few hundred now, will talk either about sort of depression, despair, psychological injury, or just a straight up physical injury. It seems to be a sort of doorway for a lot of people to say, yeah, but how does this body really work? Because the conventional approaches aren't doing so great with this problem I have.
Mm-hmm. I think injuries are a gift. I like to talk about injuries and or like mental, emotional disappointment, setbacks. And I think these early injuries made me realize that was the perspective that would serve me in terms of being able to continue to grow. So I've said it before, like the body is a course corrector. The things that I encounter, if I'm out of alignment, literally or metaphorically, I'll get that feedback. And thank God I have this body, to register a lot of that, whether that's physical injury or sort of like being off biochemically, to align towards what I want, because I do believe we're here to live beautiful lives. We're here to enjoy this time that we have.
And okay, BodyTalk, I've heard of a couple of times. I was just listening to an interview to prep for this where you were talking a little bit about it. And I'm curious. So for those who've never heard of it, start us with the basic. What is the BodyTalk method?
Okay, so it's based on the fact that the body has an innate wisdom. It knows how to heal itself. But when we get stressed out or experience trauma, the, innumerable communication systems that are set up to support that healing process start to break down. So the practitioner is trained to use this, just biofeedback testing to figure out what the priorities are for healing. And there's a whole specific protocol that the practitioner learns how to follow, to guide where we look for the priorities. But once we bring these priorities up and link them, it's like we build formulas, like your knee might need to link to your left ear for whatever reason. That might sound a little odd, but with BodyTalk, you learn, okay, so I tap that out and I tap it into the brain, the brain in your head, the brain in your heart, the brain in
as well.
What's that?
Talking with the body. I mean, this isn't a weird idea to me, though. I think it might be to some. And you do make weird ideas sound wonderfully down to earth. I think that's what seems to be one of your strengths. So you said it's tapping, like EFT kind of tapping, that kind of.
It's EFT is particular, like you're working with a belief system always. With BodyTalk, it could be like the scope of the work is so huge. Like I've studied epigenetics and how to work with that with BodyTalk, the microbiome, studied belief systems, studied how to work on family constellations. But it's all based on the fact that your body knows how to heal and there's a priority, like an order in which it wants to do things. So like when I had my ankle sprain and I went to my first BodyTalk practitioner, she didn't even touch my ankle. We didn't do anything for my ankle, but I walked out and my ankle felt better. So that opened the doorway to me to, okay, it's what's really holding this all together and making it run. Consciousness.
And what would you say to people who say, hey, it sounds a bit woo-woo, sounds a bit out there. I'm kind of on the edge with these things. Part of me loves them. Part of me is not so sure. Part of me wonders if it's all psychosomatic. Part of me says, no, I've seen some things in my time. So how would you respond to a kind of skeptic with this?
I would say you got to do you, is the thing you're doing working? And if not, if it is, then awesome. But I think sometimes a skeptic is actually drawn towards the thing with the skeptic hat on with a bit of fear. Because I think part of what, taking on something new, it asks us to grow and your fear is going to show up. That's a good sign. It's like, okay, I am actually asked to grow here. I'm asked to let go of something to create something new. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't want to push this upon anyone, and even for myself, I'll say it like, first I was like, really? Like for years as a practitioner, I was kind of like, this can't be true. Am I part of a cult? But then you see there's so many people working like this, and there have been over the millennia, and it just takes different forms and people are articulating it in different ways. And I think if we're really honest, we're drawn to the thing that serves us. Yeah,
my often answer to this is just to try things. I go, you know what? I'll give it a try. Sometimes I say to people, be skeptical, but don't be cynical. Give things a try. See for yourself. That's the kind of, for me, that's often the line.
Yeah, I get it too. I mean, I think it's creative, it's playful. If you feel like you have ownership of who you are and what you want, you can try something, say it works or it doesn't.
Is that one of the main methods you're using now, or is there sort of other particular sort of main strands of what you're doing?
I think I've been calling myself more of a coach lately because for a long time I felt like I was working in a way where people would come in and sort of want me to fix them. Yeah. Or not engage as deeply. And I found with myself, it took a much deeper engagement to make the big transformation happen. And I didn't want to I wanted transformation. So clients would come in, they'd get great results, but then maybe 6 months later, it would kind of be the same thing because they were coming in like every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks, every 3 months. And I personally, this is my personal desire. I wanted and I think it's related to my experience as a dancer. I was meticulous, and I still am in terms of what makes this movement work. Just really studying things. So I do that with myself, and I feel like one needs to come into that mastery with their life and whatever it is. Like if it's becoming a better parent or becoming more powerful in their work or more, creative in their creative projects. I believe it requires a great deal of attention. And that's how I started wanting to serve.
It is a different frame, isn't it? When someone comes in for healing, it's like lying on the couch, fix me, doc. When someone comes in for coaching, there's a sort of frame of slightly more active, co-involvement, co-creative kind of frame, which generally I find is a healthier frame.
Yeah, and I think it does this thing that we were talking about. It like pushes people, or I like to say ushers people lovingly into their discomfort, because that's the growth edge.
Okay. And you also mentioned biogeometry. That sort of got my attention. Something about that. I went, oh, what's that? So what's biogeometry?
So this came from, I was choreographing a dance, and I got interested in sacred geometry, just like the order of things, and I feel like there are geometries within our bodies, the way we're aligned and how we align with our external environments. And some colleagues said, no, don't study sacred geometry, study biogeometry. So I actually applied for a grant that I got to go study this work with Joseph Attar.
Who gives grants for that? Who is this government agency? What is this?
I wrote a great
Ministry of Esoterica in Washington. Who gives grants for this?
I wrote a great proposal, but I wanted to study sort of like I wanted to study frequencies. And this came from, I was performing a lot with this cellist, and we did this performance where she was outside of this barn, like playing her cello, and everyone was like, being affected by her music. And I was like, okay, if I'm over here like waving my arms around, do people actually feel that? Like what's the resonance of movement? So when I go down a trail, I just kind of like gather pieces, and biogeometry lit up for me. So it's a qualitative science. It's an environmental science. And basically, like the main way the work is used is to balance environments. So if you go to their website, their main project was, or one of their main ones was, there was a town in Switzerland that put a cell phone tower on top of their church. And animals and people started getting sick. And what's beautiful about this work, the man who developed it, his name is Dr. Karim, was he was able to work with shape, because everything emits a frequency, and different shapes emit different frequencies. You can see it in architecture. You can see it in the dome of your head. I can talk about that in a second. But he was able to use architectural shape to transmute that energy so it wasn't harmful. So they didn't have to eliminate the quote unquote bad thing. They just transmuted that energy. And Michelle,
it sounds like a lot of pseudoscience to me, if I'm honest. Like bad energy, transmute frequencies. These are the words used by fraudsters and pseudoscientists around the world. And I know they're also sometimes words used by very legitimate people, but I have a concern here. I have a concern when I hear about frequencies and transmutations.
Okay, so I would say to you, what does it make possible? Like, what are your choices making possible? So there's no good or bad or right or wrong. I mean, you could look at scientists who are saying it's all placebo effect anyway. And that's where it boils down to consciousness and how powerful your thoughts are. Sure,
super powerful thing, placebo, if we use it correctly,
Yeah. So, I think it's... I hear you with like the doubt and whatnot, but again, like I'm curious, like, oh wow, that's cool, that works, I'm gonna try that. Okay, that works. If it's not working,
go free holiday in Malta, learn some stuff.
Totally.
But biogeometry, what's the bio part of it then? Like there's some kind of relating to the body parts, or
because bio meaning like the study of life. So they've used it in agriculture. They've used it in like home design. The thing I was saying about the head is a lot of it was research from like ancient Egyptian culture and how they used shape actually to create different energies. But you can see it I'll just talk about architecture. The half dome, or like a half of a circle, actually emits a frequency that doesn't support. Or actually, let me say it like this. Oh God, how far do I want to go with you?
Well, if you talk about frequency, you need to say of what? I mean, there has to be something that has that frequency. So if you get
so there's a correlation. Color emits a certain frequency that also correlates to what?
Of what? So frequency.
A vibration.
Of what? What's vibrating? So you can only talk about
particles.
Frequency which ones?
They're like particles anywhere. Like I'm emitting sound that's creating a vibration in space.
Sure, and that's a very particular kind of vibration that we could talk about, and it's clear. So if someone's talking about frequency, I want to know of what, because it's not a complete sentence otherwise.
So frequency of shape, frequency of color, frequency of sound. And what Dr. Karim did was he devised a way to measure this.
Like a machine that...
just different tools that he devised. Some of it relates to radiesthesia. I loved it. He would talk about we see these pictures of a shepherd with a rod.
Yeah.
But that's not to get the sheep. That's actually a dowsing rod to figure out where is the energy different in the earth.
Okay. That's what shepherds use that rod for, you think?
To find where's their water, where's their, we pick up on all of that stuff.
Yeah, dowsing's a big thing in England. Lots of people are into it. I've never looked at it myself, so I don't really have an opinion on that one, but it's definitely a thing in the UK. Yeah,
so that's what he devised a way to measure this and to see, okay, actually this actually produces a quality that is supporting life, that is making more life possible. I mean, we can look at it like this too. Your heart field can be measured up to 60 feet away from you.
Sure, that's a specific electromagnetic thing. If I didn't know they could do it in 60 feet, I had 2 meters, but I imagine maybe the machines got more sensitive since I looked into that.
So that's frequency, and that's what's being measured.
That's frequency of electricity. So when people talk about frequency without a carrier, it doesn't actually make sense. So you can talk about the frequency of electricity or the frequency of sound.
Our body is electric. We are emitting electricity all the time.
Agree.
So that's what's being measured. What is the charge coming off of this?
And so measuring the body's electricity.
Yeah, through the heart field. So, it's you actually get more measuring the heart. This field is stronger. It's stronger than the brain. I feel like I might have conflated some numbers here, but let's just say the heart field is stronger. That's been measured. You can look at the Heart Math Institute.
Sure.
I think it's 6 feet, but 60 times stronger than the brain.
Okay, so it is 6 feet. All right, I had a couple of meters. So yeah. That makes sense to me subjectively as well. You could be around people and have some sense of okay. And sometimes I wonder how much of that's body language and how much of that really is a truly sort of energetic thing. Yeah.
So, but I mean, this is what Dr. Bruce Lipton would talk about this. Do you know who he is?
I've heard his name. Yeah, the sort of energy medicine type area. Yeah,
he talks about his book is called The Biology of Belief, and how our thoughts create emotions, which create vibrations, which create our reality. We resonate with the things that we're vibrating with. So Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about, in nature, it's everything is vibration. The worm moves towards this piece of food or whatever because it's resonating with it. And then it turns, it's it's not there, it's over here. Humans, we have the power to think, so we screw things up.
More than a worm. You think we'd be better off as worms?
It could be, I mean,
I thought you were going to explain my big dome head. I thought we were doing dome heads. I've got a big dome head that needs some sort of resonance here.
So let me get back to the dome head. So architecturally, I thought this was really cool. A half dome it emits a harmful frequency. So you see it in architecture, your head actually extends beyond the half circle. The Parthenon, is that what it's called? In Rome has a hole in the circle. Yeah, you see temples, they have the half dome, but then there's a point that comes out of the circle. That changes the frequency of what is emitted.
I'm trying to understand what's emitted from the Parthenon. I mean, I was following you on the heart and the electromagneticity of the heart. What's the Parthenon emitting? What?
I can't believe we're going here. That shape emits frequency, and that's what Dr.
What does the Parthenon emit? This doesn't make sense.
Shape emits frequency, and this is what Dr. Karim figured out how to measure. What qualitative frequencies. I know it's a total head scratcher.
I'll drop it. So I think I've given a bit of a challenge there, and I don't want to keep being an ass about it. So it's always a bit of a thing as an interviewer, how much do I keep pushing something? And I'm not here for a fight. So you get a lot from this system of biogeometry, and you find it effective. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think the principles of it are incredible. I say if anyone who's listening to this is curious, go look it up. And I think there's real beauty behind the work too.
Okay.
And I was just looking at, this Buckminster Fuller quote, when he's searching for a solution to a problem, if there's not beauty in it, in the solution, he knows the problem is not, the solution is not the correct solution.
Nice. There's often a correlation with elegance and simplicity, isn't there, with
Totally.
those sort of solution-based stuff. Okay, and what are your sort of dance, you've come from the dance world, choreography, I mean, it's still on your website, it's obviously something you're still sort of deeply in. What do some of your dance friends think of these kind of things you've gotten into?
Well, I think, I told you, mentioned this friend who was like, or, just another dance person who was like, wow, Michelle, when you say this stuff, I actually believe you, but I don't when someone else says it, or I'm willing to go there. And I think what happened was, just through my work as a teacher and the work I did as a performer, that was more of my early career. Then I started choreographing later. I think people grew to trust me. Mm-hmm. So when I got certified in BodyTalk, I had been teaching already in New York and some international teaching for at least 10 years already. And I was like, hey, I got certified in this thing. I don't even know what it is, but I want to, like, even when I went to study it, I said, I don't know if I'm going to become a practitioner, but I know it's going to change my life. So I emailed the students I was working with, and people came to me and tried the work. And again, it's like what it makes possible. Is it actually helping? And if not, it's not your thing right now or ever. And I think we need that diversity in how we approach our issues too.
I'm glad there's many methods out there, because I feel like different things, and even in my own life at different times, like I do craniosacral therapy, or I did before COVID, and 10 years before I would have said, I'm not interested in that. It's just someone holding my head. That's all bollocks, and now I really enjoy it. So even within my own life, there's been some sort of change in different approaches. I like gentler approaches than I used to, and certainly different kinds of people seem to resonate, I'll use that word, with different approaches. So it seems to be, for me, it's positive that there's a lot out there. Sometimes I worry there's so much a profusion of things that it's just kind of confusing. I was in a natural health center a while back, and they had, I'd say, at least 200 leaflets from 200 different kinds of alternative health practitioners. And it's like, imagine walking in with let's say you've got, a bad knee, right? And going, okay, where do I even begin? So I think that's potentially an issue.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing I learned from BodyTalk, which I think is echoed in what I was saying, Bruce Lipton talks about, is that your body does have an innate wisdom, I think, coming through it, And I feel like the more we tune into that compass, we land in the right place at the right time with the right person. And if we don't, you have the strength to acknowledge it and you course correct. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's just information. And then you can course correct and find something that serves you. I think confusion actually is a result of the subconscious mind trying to hold a person back.
So again, confusion is a result of the subconscious mind trying to hold someone back. I don't know what that means.
So up until we're 7, we're basically sponge brain. We're just taking in all the information. Our brain is mostly in theta. So we can't reject. We don't have a conscious mind yet. We can't analyze or reject things. So that becomes our framework for how we live. And a lot of times, unless a person goes into conscious change or takes these things like injuries and setbacks and disappointments as indicators, like, okay, something in my set of belief systems that I got up until I was 7 is not working. And this is a moment to embrace change, to take a look. What's not working here? It's not making what I want possible. Uh-huh. So what happens when we approach something that actually is going to ask us to expand, the closer we get to it, the fear can get stronger, because the subconscious mind is like, you're alive today, don't do anything differently. So it takes a lot of conscious intention. And what I would say, like a solid, I'm going to say heart, like a tuning in with that way, being in touch with that way, to override all the things that have helped us survive up until this day.
And that is the basic issue in any change work. And there's different ways of framing that issue. But essentially, people have patterns that are pretty deep because they've been going since they were pretty young. And, that has helped them survive up to this point. And, we've all got these patterns, and they're pretty, whether we look at that from an embodiment lens or a conscious, unconscious lens, there's different lenses, but that is the basic challenge any practitioner is working with, is things are ingrained, right? And it's tricky to go against that because of resistance, because of just habit as much as anything.
Yeah, I mean, not only survive, but belong. Like a
Mhm.
lot of these patterns we formed because this was how we connected to our family or our community, even if it was abusive.
Some sense of safety, some sense of control, some sense of connection with other human beings. Even if that connection was unhealthy, human beings will seek unhealthy connection over no connection, right? And you'll see like a little kid playing out doing this, getting attention by being naughty, and it's like even being shouted at is better than being ignored kind of thing for the kid.
Totally.
Quick break from the interview to tell you about our shop and a deal we've got on there, and also about some events that are coming up. So if you go to Embodied Facilitator /shop and use the code podcast 50 is the code, you can get 50% off anything in the shop. And what have we got on there? How to design training, trauma for facilitators, breath work, leadership, resilience, life purpose. There's a bunch of books, there's a bunch of e-courses, mostly for facilitators, trainers, coaches, yogis, different ebooks. But that code will give you 50% out off anything at all there in the shop. So that could save you, let's say, up to £100, which is about $120. So well worth having that code. Go to embodiedfacilitator.com/shop. Also on that website, you will see embodiedfacilitator.com/events-calendar. Just look under events under the main title. You'll see all the stuff we've got coming up for events. We regularly have free online events. If you're interested in embodiment, we have them on coaching, life purpose, marketing, all trauma, all sorts of things. So have a look at the events page. You can see the different one-day events we've got coming up related to the conference and all kinds of other stuff. Okay, so all of that is on embodiedfacilitator.com. And remember that code there. That code is podcast50 if you want 50% off anything. There you go. A good deal. Back to the interview.
Yeah.
Wow, we fucked up, huh? What do we do? What do we do?
Well, we keep evolving, you know. I mean, I think it's kind of, for me, I see it almost like an adventure.
Nice frame. Yeah.
It's like, what a gift that we get to, like, how boring would life be if we didn't get to evolve?
Right. That's a nice frame. And I think we can approach it, as you say, like, this isn't an adventure. I sometimes think of it as a privilege. Like, I'm in a place where I have enough stability, financial resources, health, where I actually have spare energy to do just a half-hour kind of check-in with one of my therapists today. And it was like, wow, I actually have a bit of energy and a bit of money and a bit of time. And most of human history, my ancestors were just surviving,
Yeah.
and this is a huge privilege I have and a huge adventure, as you say. And like, I love being a learner, and this all takes learning. So I think it's quite interesting, like what frame people have around change work, because everybody has some sort of an implicit change around it. And some clients turn up and they're like, great, let's change. And other clients turn up and they're like, oh God, I have to change. Like, they've clearly got a very different story as to what transformation is.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and for you, and what you just said, I'm sure you had to get over a lot of loyalty, conscious or subconscious, to your family or your ancestral line to be able to be in the place you are now.
Yeah, I looked at stuff. I was doing stuff around money today, and it was really interesting to go, okay, a lot of what I see around money, it's a nice word you use, loyalty. It's people like, well, I'm poor, my family's poor, I've always been poor, we've always been poor, that's my tribe. And it's like, people don't realize, it's like they start making some money, maybe they have a talent, they start getting paid. Of course they're going to sabotage it. Of course they are, because it's better to be poor and have togetherness and belonging than to be rich and feel like you've been thrown out of your cave,
Yeah.
So the idea of loyalty, I think, is very important there.
Yeah, and I have a feeling you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway.
I like you for saying things that I don't like, though. Let me just say that ahead of whatever it is.
So I feel like what that process is you're letting go of something of a lower vibration to move to a higher vibration. And I really feel like I don't know how you feel about, like, you're like, one's highest self knows that. And like, I believe we do have that. You could call it innate wisdom. You could call it the blueprint for health or whatever it is. I think whether we're conscious of it or not, this philosophy works for me, that we are, like, life is supporting more life. And I think you're doing that, even though it may seem like a disservice to someone else and they're going to hate you for it or whatever. You're creating more life. And that's what we're here to do. And if we get our minds out of the way and the judgments and the shame and the guilt, then more people can be expressing. And that's felt in the body. We know that. We know what it feels like to be small. We know what it feels like to be stuck. And we know what it feels like to be free and empowered. So how can we help more people to step into that and to feel safe, free, and empowered? Like that's so exciting to me. What a different world we would have. And not only feel that, but also to feel like, to acknowledge what it feels like to not feel that. Because we need that first. Like, oh, this is stuck. Oh, I've been holding my breath for like 20 years. I just started holding my breath right now. Like it, I can breathe. Hey, what's up?
Hey, let's breathe.
Yeah.
Who do you like working with, Michelle? Do you have like particular kind of clients you really enjoy, like with attitude or demographic or problem they come with? I mean, is there like a particular kind of person that you lights you up?
Yeah, I think because I'm a dancer, I love people who are open to their creativity, or they have some, like most of the people I've worked with have been dancers or artists, or just like, this person who works in finance, but is totally creative and totally willing. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I'm such a heart-centered person too. If a person is willing to like drop below that analytical mind and be in that openness, but I love the questioning too. That's who I love working with. My practice has been primarily women too. Mm-hmm. But I do
conscious choice or just accident.
It's just been what it is, or like it'll the trail will lead to this population or that population, because it's all been referral for the most part. So, but I love working with all people, however they identify.
I like the variety as well, Michelle. For me, having different. Interestingly, I had a client yesterday from India. And he came on, he had the Indian robes on, like dressed, kind of traditional style. And his background was like this Indian palace with sort of, things billowing in the breeze, kind of just very nice place and very Indian looking. And then he came out and he said the exact same things I'd heard a British client say one day before. Uh-huh. And it was kind of this just beautiful moment of like, in this divided world that was like, we're all suffering the same crap, the same challenges. It was like, I struggled to say no, I struggled to have boundaries, and like an English woman who was telling me that the day before. Yeah. And it was this wonderful moment of like, even though we have different cultures, and he was talking about his Hindu background and how that was part of it, and there was a cultural piece there about his religion, his family and stuff that was a bit different from England, but it was basically the same stuff I'd heard in England just one day before. And it was somehow it was touching to me. I think we're in this very divided world right now, and it was almost beautiful to see that people have very similar challenges from different cultural backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to we want to connect and be seen, and we want to feel freedom. And I feel like, even if it's like in the womb, you subconsciously knew that connection. I feel like there's something that Feldenkrais said, and I turned it into like a movement score at some point. Like my body remembers the experience of freedom. And it's almost like through knowing it once, it will continue to, I believe, realign towards that freedom. So I think, the device there, we are divided by certain things, but the diversity is incredible. We need it. Otherwise we're going to turn into like a one field of corn,
One monoculture, global cornfield. Like, you've been in the Midwest too long. I think it's getting you. It's getting you. You need to go back to New York, Michelle. It's where I come from, by the way, is like the Midwest. It's just corn as far as the eye can see where I come from. It's the breadbasket of England where I come from. So it's very much like Iowa from what I can gather. Okay, interesting. Did a little birdie tell me you're very expensive as a coach? And this is something just to be clear, no accusation, no problem. I actually find it interesting. Did I hear that rumor right?
I think it's relative, but what has been beautiful for me is that money asks me to evolve.
Okay. What does that mean? Money asks me to evolve.
So in order to come to the truth of what I wanted to charge for my services, I had to get really honest with myself and not hide behind any belief systems. And I since we're on this embodiment talk, that's changing literally how I walk through the world. Yes.
And this has been what I've been doing stuff on for 2 days now. So this is sort of alive for me somehow. And I heard this and you're doing, and can I ask what you charge for a session or, it's a very un-British thing to do. It's very taboo money in Britain anyway, in many countries, but particularly here.
Yeah. And I think that's something to look at too, because if we can't talk about it, how does it move? So my one-on-one work starts at $15,000.
$15,000, and that's like your basic starter package of 10 sessions? What would that be?
It's a VIP day. So a person works with me. We do a 4-hour workday together.
Nice.
And 8 weeks of follow-up support via email and text.
Great. I have a friend who's a trauma therapist, and she only works with millionaires. Like, that's an absolute requirement to be, one of her trauma therapists, and she's on call 24/7. It's all sorts of criteria around it, but it similarly has these very large packages. And how is that? Like, some people listening to this might be shocked. I can imagine some of them are judging you. To be clear, I am not. To be very clear. So, how is that to sort of move into that realm?
So, it's exactly what I said. It asked me to evolve. And I could find myself, I used to run, I started a low-cost clinic, holistic clinic, in the old neighborhood I lived in Brooklyn, where I had different practitioners, craniosacral therapists, massage therapists, acupuncturists, myself as a BodyTalk practitioner. I can't even remember what else. And people would come in, and people could come in for sessions from, I think they started at like $15 to $40.
Yeah.
I found that I ended up paying for that, it was exhausting me. And I was arranging everything and great, I got $60 today or whatever. And then I took it to a yoga clinic and just did it myself. And that was fine too, but I could feel like I love this, but something is not aligned here. And I had to come to the truth of wanting to charge a lot more. At the same time, I have a deep desire to serve a lot of people.
How's that balance?
Because I have time to write a free email newsletter to every single week. I just talked to a woman on the phone. She's like, you have helped me so much. She has not paid me a cent. Yeah,
particularly with the sort of content marketing model. I like this model of marketing because it means I'm encouraged through the marketing model to put out a lot of this podcast, 350 episodes or whatever we're on now. It's all completely free for anyone who wants it. It's a huge library of resource, but it's also part of my marketing. So I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. I feel like it's a good investment of my time. And also I like that probably something like 500,000 people have heard these podcasts by now. And that's
it's a beautiful
huge
thing.
number. I'm imagining 500,000 people in a stadium. It's bigger than Wembley Arena, the biggest stadium in Britain. And I'm like, wow, I never imagined I would reach that many people. And I hope in a positive way. And, that supports other business models. And there can be a sort of Robin Hood principle with some of this, can't there, in terms of sort of freeing up time and space. There's also another part of me that just says, well, why not? Why should you shouldn't have to justify that with doing charity work or whatever. Why not?
When you're justifying it, there's some part of you that's still on the defense.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is the place where we realize we have the freedom to choose, and there's so much ignorance in the world that we don't realize that we're choosing stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And if people start to learn that, I think we start to change things.
People don't always.
I want to say one more thing about the money thing.
Yeah, no, I want to keep talking about it. It's great. It just happens to be a live topic for me today. So I like talking about this.
I mean, it was also for me when I invested highly in myself.
Yeah.
That's when stuff really started to change. So,
yeah.
and that's different for everybody. And I'm not here to serve every person in the world either.
Yeah.
And that was like letting go of the caretaker part of myself. So I had to evolve this compulsive part that's trying to take care of everybody else to make myself feel better.
Yes.
That's not healthy.
Some people, I think, frame their low-paid work as some sort of charity gig, but actually, it's the only thing they can do psychologically. B, it's often coming from an extremely unhealthy pattern of trying to save the world or caretake or something else, their own self-esteem issues, it's sort of, I think of what I invest in myself, I've been doing this work 20 years, every week I probably pay about 5 high-end professionals to help me in terms of my own embodiment, psychology, therapy, whatever. And it's there's a huge investment in that. So that's what really people are paying for. And it's a funny thing happened the other day. A client phoned up my secretary and said, we want to book a session with Mark. And she said, he's too busy. He's not taking any clients. But she didn't want to say that. So she just threw a ridiculous figure at them and said, oh, you probably can't afford his one-to-one work. It's blah. And she said, very high figure. And they went, okay, fine. Yeah. And then she had to phone me and apologize. Said, I'm really sorry, Mark, I've got you a new client, but it's really 10 times more than we're used to charging. But
what did you charge?
What's that? It depends on what the work was, and this isn't contracted yet, so I'd rather not say. But it's significantly more than I'm normally used to charging. So I generally would charge for an hour like £250, which is like about $300, and this is several times more than that. And it depends on the client. If it's a CEO of a large company or whatever, I might go for more than that. But this is, that's a decent coaching rate. And it was just interesting. It's like, okay, how many times is just having a limiting belief that you can't get paid more than, say, 200 or 300, which is, considered a sort of good hourly rate for coaching in the UK. Just this instance was just really peculiar. It was like, oh, okay, maybe we've actually been screwing ourselves here by putting this figure out to certain clients anyway, Yeah,
I also feel like I've learned that I can't make assumptions about what someone's desire or what they want to make possible too.
Right, that's their choice, right? That's actually, like, I don't want to take the piss out of them. It's actually absolutely, it's their free choice if they want to pay that. The other thing I'm thinking is, because I'm doing stuff at scale now, like we just sold an online product, it's going to sell probably about 300 units by the time it's finished, and it took me, say, 8 hours to film. I have to go, okay, opportunity cost. If I can film something in 8 hours, and it brings in £25,000 from the scalable product, which is the way I like reaching lots of people at a lower cost. It's a sort of another model I have rather than expensive one-to-one. I've got to balance any one-to-one work against that, right? So it's like, okay, that's £2,000 an hour of my time. Does that make sense? So if I'm doing one-to-one work for an hour where I could be filming a product which I can sell to 300, 400, 500,000 people, my hourly rate should reflect that, or else I'm actually screwing myself over with the opportunity cost there. And that's where it goes. It's a bit of a head fuck, because I was brought up to believe, there's a fair price for something. And it's a very different way of thinking.
Well, look at what you just did with your body when you said that too.
What did I do with my body?
You said there's a fair price. You made a fist and your body got a little,
Yeah, there's a contraction there. Like, I did that, didn't I? Yeah. And I'm not sure I believe that anymore. Like that sort of belief I was raised with, that there's an apple should cost this much. It's like, well, how much do you want the apple?
Yeah, and there's like, who's shitting? Like, what does shitting do?
Who's saying that, right?
I say we got to stop shitting all over ourselves, because everything is so relative. And I think the only thing we can really gauge by is our own inner truth, and that's like the hardest job. Mm-hmm. Hardest job, because then you are letting go of a lot of loyalty at times. You're letting go of the conditioning that we were talking about. You're letting go of your body as you know it.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good question. I think I'm going to explore this more in my time. Like, who are you being loyal to in a behavior? Totally. You know what I mean? Like, even with, like, for example, I realized this with food. I was eating sort of the working class food I grew up with, even though it was making me fat. And I was like, hang on a minute. This is some sort of sense of belonging and loyalty to a group of people I'm not even around anymore. It's not most of my friends these days are hippies. They eat vegan food. So it's like, these people aren't even around me anymore, and I'm somehow being loyal to them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can work with a 75-year-old man and find that he's still being loyal to his dead father.
Wow. Yeah, it's an interesting frame. I like it. I might go and play with that one a little bit more. All right, cool. Anything rocking your world right now, Michelle? Anything that you're sort of excited about, you want to sort of chat about, say about? We've got 10 minutes.
What do I want to chat about? I just finished a self-love course. I probably won't launch it again until next week. But I do want to just encourage people. We're talking about this one-on-one work, but I think the group work is amazing too. Mm-hmm. I've seen this for the 4 or so years that I've been doing group work, at least online, that people learn a lot through watching someone else go through an experience. We have the mirror neurons firing. We just are I think our minds get cracked open when we're in connection and community.
Yes.
So I'm just finishing that right now and figuring out what my next thing is. I might relaunch a course that I had called, I don't know if I'm going to keep this name, but I called it Go Big, a course to tap into your greatness. And it is kind of what we're talking about right now. How do we continue to expand into life? And for me, it has always started as an embodied practice. Mm-hmm. For the decades for me as a dancer, okay, how does this relate to my body? That's always been my through line. And then adding into that consciousness. So how is the way I'm thinking affecting how I can show up embodied and present in this world? So, Actually, that's the one thing I think I mentioned this too. Like that sort of rocks my world is like this, like trust in the body. But then wait a second, I can't always trust what I'm quote unquote feeling, because that might be a part of the mechanism of my subconscious mind trying to hold me back.
Right. This is really worth pointing out, because there's this sort of mythos in the embodiment world, people say it very sacredly, the body doesn't lie. And, there's some truth in that. There's some wisdom in that, but there's also some bullshit in that, you could have I don't know, one of the examples we've talked about, money, some kind of belief that money is bad and I can't make any money. And you will feel like shit when charging a client for a perfectly legitimate piece of work, right? It's because you've got a belief that's not serving you, which comes from this background, all the stuff we've talked about, being loyal to poverty, blah, blah, blah. At that moment, you will feel terrible. That moment, your body's fucking lying to you. So it's like I think this needs to be balanced.
Yeah. And I would say, actually, the body isn't lying. You do feel afraid, but it's trying to trick your conscious mind into believing you're afraid.
Let me rephrase it. Your body isn't your higher self at that point. It isn't your wiser self at that point.
Well, yeah. And some, like I've heard people talk about, then your body's becoming the servant of your mind, meaning your awareness, rather than your awareness, like your body serving your awareness. Master of your awareness, rather than your body serving your awareness. And awareness being like your highest intention. Let's use the money example, since it's simple. You want to charge more money because you want to make something different possible, but your body's afraid. Yes, it's afraid. It's not lying, but it's just about getting into that loop, like learning enough, exploring enough, being around people who've already made that change. So you understand it, and then you experience it. You say to your next client, like, your secretary said, like, it's this much. Oh, wow, look, actually, this is a new reality that I hadn't imagined before. This is breaking my paradigm. That lets my body feel relaxed when I go into the next conversation. When I say this, it lets me be confident about what I want and what I'm here to do. And I feel like that's only something a person in and of themselves can know. It's not what someone else tells you is the truth. The truth is the truth.
I've definitely seen, almost say with money again, we're working with it today, like there's a tolerance with the body for money. The first time I said that day will cost £2,000, I could barely get it out of my mouth. These nowadays, it's like £2,000. It's just like I'm saying, this is a pink note, this is a pen in my hand, it's £2,000. It's just not a big deal. And there's a way in which you can build tolerance, I think. And I've also seen people who've come into money quickly not be able to tolerate it as well. There's a sort of tolerance that needs to be built up for the change of identity, status, all those other things that can come with that.
Totally, like structural foundation. And I think that's something we can actually practice in and of ourselves before the thing shows up. Like that's it's like that thing of visualization, like becoming, resonating with the idea or the thing you want to create, and really practicing that through your body. Like, I feel amazing when, this number shows up in my bank account or something. And that we need the body on board, because if it's just a thought, it will go nowhere. The body's going to be like, hell no. So there's something about training our bodies too. And I, like as a dancer, how many decades I spent just like lying on the floor, letting go of my patterns of standing to let something new arise. Where like all my patterns of like how I've engaged myself, this part of my jaw holding, this part of my pelvis can just like get neutral again, or as neutral as possible. So then I can build something new. So I feel like it's the same thing with money. It's the same thing with a relationship. And I feel like that's how my history in embodiment has been able to serve me in supporting people in their own human potential.
Nice. Okay, Michelle, we're moving towards wrap up here. It's been good. I really like you. I don't think I agree with you on some stuff, but I can still say I really like you. And I like your smartness and your challengingness and your creativity and your fun. And, I feel like we need a world, particularly at the moment, where people can have conversations, maybe tussles and agreements, without it being a source of personal problem. Does that make sense?
Totally.
It just seems like that's really missing in the world. It's quite unusual to be part of a conversation which is like there's some disagreement, some tussle, but it's civil and it's pleasant and it's still fun. And, I hope we're both walking away from this with a smile,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, it asks one to let go of their attachments to what they think is right. And it's like, okay, I just do me. Mark will do him. Awesome. I love it. We can sit in the same room together. I don't have to like be down your throat trying to convince you of something, because I don't know. I think there is here's something that was awesome for me in learning about BodyTalk. It's we actually exist beyond space and time. And I know we don't have time to really go into that.
I'm just going to drop that in at the end of the interview. Oh, by the way, we exist beyond space and time. Well, you got 5 minutes left, so go for it.
Okay, so just Google quantum theory for anyone listening. Just look at that and see what you think about that. But yeah, I think it's just we can put whatever kind of value and meaning we want to on anything. But for me, ultimately, it often just boils down to, what does this make possible? What do I want? I want to sit here and be in communication with you. I want to be at peace. So I'm not going to try to make you think what I think or behave the way I want you to behave. That sucks. That's hell.
You should teach the millennials this, Michelle, not to try and convert people with religious fanaticism. We can do a little bit more of that in the world right now. If you're under 40 and you're listening to this, this is for you. So good. So 2 things. Where can people find you on the internet, Michelle? Where's a good place to look you up and find your stuff?
Yeah, you can go to Instagram, Michelle Boule, but also go to michelleboule.com. My name is spelled with 2 L's in the Michelle. Go to michelleboule.com and you'll be able to go directly to my coaching and healing website or to my dance website.
They're both there. They're both beautiful. Worth a look. What are you on the gram, Michelle? I can't find you on the gram.
Michelle.Boule.
Boule. That's where I went wrong. Instagram's not got a very good search function. Michelle.Boule. I'm adding you on the gram right now.
Fantastic.
Okay, I think that's you. Boules, because I can't spell. Is it French name?
It is French.
So there we go. Michelle Boule. I'm following you now. Cool. And do you have a closing message about the body, Michelle, for all our listeners?
I just feel like what a gift it is to have this time with a body while we're alive, even as it ages. What a gift. So for me, it's I got this being raised Catholic, your body's a temple. but in a way, it really is. What a thing we have. It's this thing that we have to express with and through while we're here. So I would just say honor it, trust it, let it take a ride, let it change.
Beautiful. Michelle, thank you so much for your time today. I got to run now, but that was good. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mark. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Right, bye.
Some ways to get more, to give back, and to get more involved now. So the biggest request I have would be to share the podcast with your friends, people that you think would really enjoy it. Email it to them, put it on your social media, tell them about it, old school. Really appreciate that. Equally, if you want to support us financially, you can go to Patreon. That's patreon.com/Embodiment Podcast and give us $1 an episode. And I'd say they're well worth $1. So that's less than £1 if you're in UK-ish. So yeah, please go there. On the embodiedfacilitator.com website is where this is hosted. Most people I think listen to for iTunes. iTunes, we'd certainly appreciate a review. The way iTunes works means that a review means more people will find it. iTunes regards it as more important for searches. So even a couple of sentences review really does help as a little thank you to us. And if you want to go to embodiedfacilitator.com, you can see the actual, links to the sites. There's comments on there. The Facebook group tends to be where people discuss things. So if you go to put in the Embodiment Podcast into Facebook, there's a page which is relatively quiet and a group which does have some discussion on. So I will reply to things personally there. So also on embodiedfacilitator.com website, there's all sorts of freebies there. There's videos, there's free ebooks, there's ebooks you can buy. And of course, there's our newsletter list. If you want to stay in touch and learn about things like the Embodied Facilitator Course and our next Embodied Yoga Principles teacher training, then go to that website and you'll see a little pop-up and you can get the newsletter through there. Okay, so I think they're the main ones. Tell your friends, pay us some money on Patreon, give us a review on iTunes, send us your email if you want to be on the newsletter list, and get involved on the Facebook there. Bit long. Pick whatever you like that works for you.